Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the marriage of the back box to the main cabinet using these hinges. And I'm also going to show you all the stuff needed to make this thing secure using those wing bolts and the latches on the back. So I hope you got your invite, and remember to gift. Let's get this wedding going. Before we proceed to marry these two parts together, does anyone have anything that they wish to say or forever hold your peace? Yes, I have something to say. This is not the first time this cabinet has been with a hinge. What? Do you have any proof of these allegations? Yes, I have proof, and in fact, anybody who's been watching this build series knows exactly what I'm talking about. Or you can do what I'm going to do, and I guess you're going to see if this works, is I'm just going to make the whole location 3/8 of an inch down. I guess you're going to see if this works. Let me show you my proof. You can see that the original hole has been plugged and sanded smooth, and a second hole has been re-drilled. This is the proof that this hinge was not loyal to the original design. All right, so it seems like this marriage is already starting with some shaky ground. So let me explain what happened. So I followed the plans on mgrnet.org to the letter, all the sides and the layout of the hole, except I have made my own modifications. So if you go back and look in there, this top piece of the cabinet is actually supposed to have a rabbet, which I'm not doing for you guys to simplify the build. But because of that rabbet, it was actually supposed to sit up 3/8 of an inch higher because this top cabinet piece would sit up that much. So if you remember when I made the videos a way back where I was laying out and drilling this hole, I made a note that when I put the hinge there, it didn't seem right. And so I adjusted it accordingly so that it would fit. However, that was my mistake. So what I had to do is plug and glue the hole, sand it nice and smooth, re-drill the hole where it originally should have been in the plans. And then because I was short 3/8 of an inch, I ended up just taking a piece of 3/8 plywood, re-drilling the holes for the vents and the wires up into the back box, and then gluing that back down. So I'm kind of back to where I should be, and I have made adjustments to the plans that I have on the site. So that has been fixed. Now it's time to move on. First thing up, before we start drilling holes for these hinges, we have to make sure that the back box is perfectly centered and where we want it to be on the main cabinet. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a nice accurate tape measure. You are going to measure across the back box at the bottom and figure out the halfway point and make a very accurate pencil mark. And then you're going to do the same thing with the width of the top of the cabinet. Figure out the halfway point and make a mark. And what you're going to do is you're going to line up those two marks, or the two parts, so they are perfectly centered. Now you also want to make a mark for the center on the back of the two parts and help you line up the back, so that way the front and back are perfectly lined up. And then the other thing you got to do is you also got to make sure that the two parts, the back surfaces, are flush. Take your time with this, make it exactly where you want it, and to hold it in place while you're doing your work, you can use some C-clamps carefully from the other side. All right, next take the hex side of your hinge bolt and put it in from the inside. Now grab your back box hinge, and there is left and right, so make sure you have the right one, and grab the other matching bolt for your hinge and put it together. Now, I'm going to show you something here. Now that this is together, I want to show you something. So it's not meant to be tight. It's going to have some clearance here. There's quite a bit in here. And we don't want this hinge, every time you put the back box down, to scrape up your vinyl artwork. So we want to have a space in here. However, they're kind of getting you to just lay this out where it's supposed to be and kind of hope it's in the right spot. So I have a little better of a solution. So instead of just putting the bolt in, go around your house or your garage and find some washers of various thicknesses that will work around the bolt. And then that way you can space this out nice and evenly to where it's supposed to be, and definitely away from the graphic artwork. It's really hard to film, so I'm going to explain this. Between the black hinge and the wood cabinet, I'll put my finger, you can see my finger in the little gap there. That is a nice even 1/8 inch gap all the way along, and so now when this goes up and down on the back box, it's not going to scrape the cabinet. So now all we do is we swing this up and get ready to lay out where our holes are going to get drilled. Now with your finger holding the bracket up against the back box, and make sure that you have that nice even 1/8 inch gap, take a nice sharp pencil and mark out those square holes, 3 of them, so that we can figure out where to drill them after we take the back box off. And then obviously don't forget to do the other side, and then you can take off the back box and we're going to lay out and center punch and drill those holes for the bolts. Before we bolt this up, there's a part that's supposed to be in here on the inside of the wood back box so that these flange nuts can kind of spread the clamping force out a bit. Think of it like a big washer. Now there is a Williams part. If you want to just buy these, take a look on MGR.net and find what that part number is. Otherwise, I'm going to make one. I essentially just need something about 4.5 inches long, and in the center and in these 3 hole locations, I just need a 1/4 inch hole so that I can put in there. So let's make that. All right, looks like the hole spacing is every 1 3/4, so I'll lay that out and center punch and drill it. All right, cool, let's bolt this thing up. Woohoo! This thing is moving. All right, cool. Well, there is a slight issue. So keep in mind that I had to modify the height and the width of the back box to fit my monitors. So even though I'm using the MGR.net plans for where I should be drilling the hinges and stuff, it seems to me that it is not in the right spot. If I had to guess just off the top of my head, you would probably want at least a 3/4 inch height above the cabinet instead of just the 3/8. So just keep that in mind if you're doing my plans exactly. I don't think this is a real big deal. This is going to be up 99% of the time while I'm playing it. And if I ever have to ship it, the only thing I got to do is put a board in here across the whole cabinet, a bunch of blankets, and that way I am not crushing the stainless trim back here. And honestly, I don't know who would ever just put it flat down on the cabinet anyway. Cool. Well, let's get this back up and get going on the other stuff here. Now that this back box is on its hinges and it's placed where it's going to be, the next step would be drilling the holes for these wing bolts and putting in these T-nuts. Now, to get a little better access more for just drilling, I'm going to take out this mount for our monitors and we'll get going on that. You need to figure out where these wing bolts are going to go, and they need to have some access so that you can fully spin that wing bolt for tightening and undoing it without it having it interfering with the glue blocks or your monitors or the monitor brackets, etc. So for me, mine are going to go right there. And to make sure this goes in the right spot, I'm going to center punch that, and it's going to be a drilled 15-30 seconds hole for the T-nut to work. For this 15-30 seconds drill, you're going to find that the shank, or the part that doesn't have these grooves called flutes, where it goes into the drill, is going to be 1/2 inch diameter. So if you've got a little drill like this, you're going to find very quickly it won't go in there because these are usually only 3/8 diameter maximum. So you got two options. You buy or borrow a drill that has up to 1/2 inch, so it just fits in, or you can buy the 15-30 seconds drill with a step in the shank, and it's going to be down to that 3/8 diameter. Or if you're like me and you have access to some machines, I use the lathe and a cutter and just trim this down to 3/8 so it fits into this. The next thing is installing these T-nuts to the underside of the hole. We're using these T-nuts so that we don't have to fiddle with loose nuts and bolts while we're trying to install and tighten these wing bolts. So traditionally, you just take a hammer and you smash them into the wood, and the barbs on the T-nut is what kind of holds it in place and keeps it from spinning when you go to tighten the bolt in. But I have a bit of a more elegant solution, so let me show you what I'm going to do. So what I did is I found a long 3/8 bolts and a bunch of washers to be able to make up the difference for how long the bolt was. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this through the hole, and from the underside spin on the T-nut with the barbs facing up. And the idea is that when this is in the hole, instead of hammering that T-nut back up into the wood from the underneath, I'm just going to get a socket wrench and start tightening this up while I kind of hold the T-nut from moving. And as I tighten that up, that T-nut is going to sink into the wood, and then I just have to loosen it and it'll be all good. Cool, back box is all secured with those wing bolts. Now there is another safety measure thing that we're going to put in here as well, and the idea is that after transport, when you kick up the back box, before you get a chance to get in there and put in a wing bolt, there's a chance that this back box could fall down and cause a lot of damage, maybe hurt somebody. So they have these little latches that you put on the back so that you basically lift it up, put the latch on, and then you can take your time and put the bolts in and make sure it's secure. And usually there's a warning on the back even that says, this is not the permanent fix. This is just temporarily on there holding it until you get those wing bolts in. So let's figure out where this goes and put this in. Since you only have one latch, you're going to put it in the center of the cabinet, and the short hook piece goes onto the back box, whereas the piece with the handle and the spring goes onto the main cabinet. And then after that, you're basically just going to position it up and down somewhere where you're going to have the most amount of strength coming from the screws. So I think traditionally the way they put it is the bottom of this hook is to the bottom of the back box. But if I do that, I kind of have screws going in between these two pieces of wood, and I don't think that's a good idea. So I'm just going to basically go up a little higher so that I can get these screws into the side edge of this board and these ones up there. So just to go ahead and screw those in. They are some sheet metal screws that actually will grab in here a lot easier that you can order when you get these latches. When you're putting the screws in for the bottom part, what you're going to do is you're going to put a little bit of a kind of kick out here. I don't know what that is, maybe 15, 20 degrees, not straight down. You want it up about like that, and then hang it on the hook, and then transfer those holes and screw it in there. The reason why is if you have it out like that and you attach it, when you push down on it, the spring will allow that to kind of stay closed. If you just have it straight like that and put it on, this will be loose and there won't be any tension on there. Cool, I'm glad you guys were able to witness the back box being married to the main cabinet with those back box hinges, the wing bolts, and the safety latch. So this thing's progressing nicely. I think the next video up is going to be kind of finishing up the back box. Let's get those monitors put in, the speaker panels put in, things like that. So look forward to that coming real soon. And if you have any questions or concerns or you need some help with your build, feel free to comment in the section down below and I will give you as much help as I can. And if you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram, that way you can see all the stuff going on in the shop in between videos. Till next time, take it easy.